3:47 a.m., and I was alone with 5 white shirts that could ruin my life. The laundry hummed around me, industrial washers clicking through their cycles, the smell of detergent and steam thick enough to taste. Portland's only 24-hour laundromat wasn't glamorous, but it paid just enough to keep the debt collectors from calling every single day instead of every other. $32,000 in student loans felt like an anchor around my neck, dragging me down to this fluorescent-lit purgatory night after night. I should have known something was wrong the moment the delivery arrived. Anonymous drop-off services weren't unusual, but the note attached to the black garment bag made my stomach twist. Urgent cleaning required. Discretion essential. Payment double standard rate upon pickup. Double rate meant an extra $200. $200 I desperately needed before Friday's rent deadline. I unzipped the bag. 5 shirts. Italian silk, custom tailored, the kind that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. And every single one was ruined by dark crimson stains that spread across collars, cuffs, and sleeves in patterns I recognized immediately from my abandoned chemistry degree. Blood. Human blood, if the color and consistency were any indication. My hands trembled as I laid them across the stainless steel sorting table. This wasn't a nosebleed or cooking accident. The spatter patterns were violent, chaotic. Someone had been hurt badly while wearing these shirts. Or someone else had been hurt near whoever wore them. I should call the police, turn them in, walk away from whatever darkness had walked through my door at 3 a.m. But rent was due in 4 days. My checking account had $63. The student loan payment I'd deferred twice already would default next month if I couldn't scrape together at least the minimum. I pulled on latex gloves and got to work. Cold water first, always cold for blood. The proteins would set permanently under heat, becoming impossible to remove. I filled a basin, added hydrogen peroxide, and a specialized enzyme cleaner I'd learned about in biochemistry class before dropping out. Salt came next, drawing out the hemoglobin through osmosis. The stains began to lift, slowly transforming clear water into something rust-colored and sinister. I worked methodically, mechanically, trying not to think about whose blood this might be, whether they were alive or dead, whether I was destroying evidence of a crime or just doing laundry for someone who'd had a very bad night. 2 hours passed. My back ached from bending over the basin. The shirts gradually returned to their original pristine white, though I had to scrub the collars 3 separate times with baking soda paste before the last traces disappeared. I was pressing the final shirt when the bell above the entrance chimed. My head snapped up. We got occasional walk-ins even at this hour, usually drunk college students or night shift workers. But something about the way the door opened, slow and deliberate, made every nerve in my body stand at attention. The man who entered didn't belong in a laundromat. He belonged on magazine covers or in boardrooms, somewhere money and power lived openly instead of hiding in blood-stained silk. Tall, at least 6'3", with shoulders that filled out his black suit like it had been painted on. Dark hair swept back from a face all sharp angles and controlled intensity. But it was his eyes that stopped my breath. Deep brown, almost black in the harsh lighting, and focused on me with the kind of attention that made me feel simultaneously seen and hunted. "I'm here for a pickup," he said. His voice was smooth, cultured, with the faintest trace of an accent I couldn't place. "Service order placed earlier tonight." I glanced at the shirts hanging behind me, perfectly pressed and innocent-looking. My mouth went dry. The white shirts? Yes. Something in the way he said it, so certain and calm, told me he knew exactly what condition they'd arrived in. And he knew I knew. I forced myself to move, to act normal, to pretend this was just another transaction. I retrieved the garment bag, carefully placed each shirt inside, and zipped it closed. My hands only shook a little. "That'll be $400, I said, doubling the doubled rate on impulse. If I was going to compromise every moral principle I'd ever held, I might as well get paid properly for it. He didn't even blink, just pulled out a money clip thick with hundreds and counted out 4 bills with the same precision I'd seen surgeons use with scalpels. Our fingers brushed as he handed over the payment. His skin was warm, calloused in unexpected places. Not the hands of someone who only wore expensive suits and had other people do his dirty work. "Thank you," he said, taking the bag. Then he paused, studying my face with that unsettling intensity again. "You're very skilled." These stains were challenging. My heart hammered against my ribs. "I studied chemistry. Before I had to drop out." Why did I tell him that? Why did I give this dangerous stranger any personal information? "I can see that. The technique you used, most commercial cleaners wouldn't know to combine enzymatic treatment with oxidation." He tilted his head slightly. "You recognized what they were. It wasn't a question." "Yes," I whispered, because lying to those eyes seemed impossible. We stood there, the truth hanging between us like smoke. He'd brought me evidence of violence, and I'd destroyed it. We were both guilty now, both complicit. His phone rang, shattering the moment. He answered in rapid Italian, his entire demeanor shifting from controlled charm to something harder, colder. When he switched back to English, his voice had edges that could cut. "How many vehicles?" A pause. "And you're certain they're Verciani's people?" Another pause, longer this time. His jaw clenched. "Understood. I'm leaving now." He ended the call and looked at me again, and this time I saw something new in his expression. Calculation. Decision. Maybe regret. "What's your name?" "Hannah. Hannah Wells." "Hannah." He said it like he was committing it to memory. "You need to come with me. Right now." I actually laughed, a sharp, almost hysterical sound. "Excuse me? The cameras outside this building have been monitoring my movements for the past week. Anyone who's seen with my property becomes a target for people who want to use them against me." He stepped closer, and I caught the scent of expensive cologne and something metallic underneath. "The men watching saw you handle those shirts. They'll assume you know something. They'll come for you to find out what." "That's insane. I'm just a laundry worker. I don't know anything about whatever you're involved in. That won't matter to them." The certainty in his voice terrified me more than any threat could have. This wasn't manipulation or exaggeration. This was simple, brutal fact. I can't just leave. I have a job, a life. I'm not going anywhere with a complete stranger who brought me blood-soaked clothing in the middle of the night. "My name is Gabriel Moretti," he said. "And in approximately 3 minutes, this building is going to become very dangerous for both of us. You can come with me voluntarily, or you can stay and explain to very violent men why you were handling evidence of their rivals' activities." As if summoned by his words, headlights swept across the front windows. Not the usual scattered traffic of Portland's night shift, but 4 vehicles moving in formation, slowing as they approached our block. Gabriel saw them too. His entire body went rigid, one hand moving to his waist where I suddenly noticed the slight bulge of a concealed weapon. "Hannah." My name was a command now, stripped of all pretense. "Come with me. Now." The first window exploded inward in a spray of glass and wood, the crack of a gunshot echoing through the industrial space. I didn't think. Didn't question. Just ran. Gabriel grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the back exit, his body between me and the shattered storefront. More shots followed, punching through washing machines and walls, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. We burst through the rear door into an alley where a black SUV idled with its engine running. The back door was already open. Gabriel shoved me inside with surprising gentleness given the violence exploding around us, then climbed in after me. "Drive," he ordered the man behind the wheel, and we were moving before my door even closed, tires squealing on wet pavement as we shot out of the alley and into Portland's empty streets. I twisted around to look through the rear window. The laundromat was receding behind us, its windows dark except for the flickering of what might have been muzzle flashes or breaking glass. Everything I owned was in that building. My purse, my phone, my keys. The life I'd been barely holding together had just shattered as completely as those windows, and I was racing away from the pieces in a stranger's car, with no idea where we were going, or whether I'd just been saved or captured. Gabriel was speaking into his phone again, coordinating something with rapid precision, but I couldn't process the words. My ears were ringing. My hands were shaking. And somewhere in the chaos of the last 5 minutes, I'd crossed a line I could never uncross. I'd seen the blood. I'd cleaned it away. And now I was running with the man who'd spilled it, The driver took corners at speeds that should have been illegal, probably were illegal, but nobody was stopping us. I gripped the leather seat beneath me, knuckles white, watching Portland's familiar streets blur past in the pre-dawn darkness. Gabriel was still on his phone, switching between English and rapid Italian that sounded like commands. His entire demeanor had shifted from the controlled man who'd walked into my laundromat to something harder, more dangerous. The expensive suit couldn't hide what he really was anymore. "Who the hell are you?" The words came out sharper than I'd intended, fueled by adrenaline and terror. And don't give me some vague answer. People just shot at me. I think I deserve the truth. He ended his call and turned those dark eyes on me. In the passing streetlights, I could see his jaw was tight, a muscle jumping near his temple. "My name is Gabriel Moretti. I run the Moretti family operations in Portland, and the people who attacked us tonight are part of a Russian organization called Versiani that wants to take over our territory. Mafia." The word felt surreal in my mouth. "You're actually Mafia. That's a simplification." But yes, I pressed my hands against my face, trying to process. The blood on the shirt suddenly made horrifying sense. "And they want to kill me because I cleaned your clothes? They want to use you, to find out what you know, where I am, what my vulnerabilities are." His voice was matter of fact, like he was explaining weather patterns instead of my potential torture and murder. "The Versiani organization has been monitoring my movements for weeks. They have hackers accessing street cameras, tracking software. When you handled those shirts, when I came to collect them, they saw an opportunity. I don't know anything. I'm just a laundry worker trying to pay off student debt. I believe you. They won't." The certainty in his voice made my stomach clench. "So what happens now? You keep me prisoner until this war or whatever is over. I keep you safe until the immediate threat is neutralized." He leaned forward slightly, and I caught that scent again. Cedar and something metallic. "You're not a prisoner, Hannah, but going back to your normal life right now would be suicide." We'd left the city center behind, climbing into the hills on Portland's outskirts. The houses here were massive, set back from the road behind gates and walls. Old money and new power lived up here, far from the rest of us. The SUV turned onto a private drive, slowing as enormous wrought iron gates swung open. Beyond them, a mansion materialized from the darkness, all modern lines and floor-to-ceiling windows. Lights blazed from every level despite the early hour. As we approached, I could see men in dark clothing positioned around the perimeter, some with visible weapons. My mouth went dry. This wasn't just wealth. This was a fortress. "Welcome to my home," Gabriel said quietly as we stopped in the circular driveway. The driver, a man Gabriel had called Thomas earlier, opened my door. I climbed out on shaking legs, staring up at the building that looked like it belonged in an architecture magazine. Not in my nightmare of a night. "This way." Gabriel placed a hand lightly on my lower back, guiding me toward the entrance. I wanted to shake him off, to run, to do anything except walk willingly into whatever this was. But where would I run? Back to my apartment where Russian mobsters were probably already waiting. The interior was even more impressive than the outside. Marble floors, soaring ceilings, artwork that looked expensive and probably was. Everything was immaculate, tasteful, designed to intimidate while pretending not to. "I want my phone," I said, stopping in the foyer. "I need to call someone. My roommate will be worried. My boss at the laundromat needs to know I'm not coming in. Your phone was in your purse, which is currently buried under debris from the attack." Gabriel's expression softened slightly. "I'll provide you with a secure line to make any necessary calls. But Hannah, you need to understand that anything connected to your old life can be tracked, used against you. So I'm just supposed to disappear? No contact with anyone? No explanation? Temporary disappearance. And yes, for your safety and theirs." I wanted to argue, to fight, but exhaustion was hitting me hard. The adrenaline that had carried me through the escape was fading, leaving behind bone-deep weariness. I can't afford to lose my job. That rent I mentioned? It's due in 4 days. The student loans are automatically withdrawn from my account. If I don't work, I default. If I default, I'm done. Something flickered across Gabriel's face. Not pity exactly, but understanding maybe. How much do you owe? That's none of your business. How much, Hannah? $32,000, I said, hating how defeated I sounded. Plus 3 months back rent I've been juggling. The laundromat pays $9 an hour plus tips that don't exist. I work 60 hours a week and barely make enough to keep the collectors from calling. He studied me for a long moment. I'll compensate you for the time you're here. Whatever you would have made working, plus expenses for anything damaged or lost tonight. And I'll handle the situation with your employer. Handle it how? I'll make sure they understand you had a family emergency. That you'll be back when the situation resolves. They won't fire you. The casual certainty that he could control that, control anything, should have angered me. Instead, I just felt numb. And if I say no, if I demand you take me back right now, then I'll take you back, and I'll assign protection to watch your apartment, though I can't guarantee it'll be enough if Versiani commits resources to getting to you. His eyes never left mine. The choice is yours, Hannah. It always is. But understand what you're choosing. I thought about my studio apartment with its broken heater and thin walls, about walking to work in the dark, alone, with the knowledge that men with guns might be waiting, about the laundromat's shattered windows and the blood that might be mine next time. Fine, I whispered. I'll stay. Temporarily. Relief crossed his features, quickly masked. Thomas will show you to your room. If you need anything, there's an intercom system. Someone is always available. Always watching, you mean? Always protecting. He reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone, checking a message. His expression darkened. Excuse me. I need to make some calls. He disappeared down a hallway, already dialing, leaving me alone with Thomas. The driver was older than Gabriel, maybe 40, with the kind of weathered face that said he'd seen things he'd rather forget. This way, Miss Wells, he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. I know this is a lot to process, but the boss doesn't make these decisions lightly. If he says you're in danger, you're in danger. I followed him up a curved staircase to the second floor, down another hallway lined with closed doors. He stopped at one and pushed it open, gesturing for me to enter. Calling it a room was like calling the Pacific Ocean a puddle. The suite was enormous, with a sitting area, a bedroom visible through another doorway, and what looked like a full bathroom beyond that. Everything was done in soft grays and whites, expensive fabrics and furniture that probably cost more than my car had before it died last year. There's clothes in the closet, Thomas said. Probably not your exact size, but close enough for now. Bathroom's stocked with whatever you might need. Kitchen is downstairs if you get hungry, but someone will bring breakfast up around 7 if you'd rather. Why are you all being so nice? The question came out before I could stop it. I'm nobody. Just some girl who cleaned the wrong shirts. Thomas's expression grew sad. The boss lost someone once. Someone who got caught in the crossfire of this life. He doesn't forget. Doesn't let innocence pay for his choices if he can help it. Before I could ask what he meant, he was gone, closing the door softly behind him. I stood there in the ridiculous luxury of my temporary prison, still wearing my laundromat uniform that smelled like detergent and fear sweat, and felt the full weight of the night crash down on me. I didn't cry. Couldn't. Tears felt too small for what I was feeling. Instead, I walked to the window and looked out at the grounds below. Men patrolling. Security cameras. A wall surrounding everything. This was Gabriel Moretti's world. Violent and controlled. Beautiful and terrible. And somehow, in the space of a few hours, it had become mine too. I should have been terrified. Should have been planning escape. But as I stood there watching dawn begin to break over Portland, all I could think about was the way Gabriel had shielded my body with his when the bullets started flying, the way he'd asked about my debt like it mattered, the warmth of his hand on my back as he guided me inside. This man was dangerous, criminal, everything I should stay far away from. So why did I feel safer here, behind his walls, than I had in months? I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows, and the disorienting sensation of silk sheets against my skin. For one blissful second, I forgot where I was. Then memory crashed back. The blood, the bullets. Gabriel Moretti's dark eyes telling me my life had just imploded. The suite was silent. Too silent after years of thin apartment walls and street noise. I found clothes in the closet like Thomas had promised. Designer labels I'd only seen in magazines. The jeans fit almost perfectly. The emerald sweater soft as air against my arms. Someone had studied me carefully to get the sizes this close. That thought should have creeped me out more than it did. Breakfast arrived on a tray carried by a woman who introduced herself as Maria, spoke in heavily accented English, and disappeared before I could ask questions. Coffee, fresh fruit, pastries that tasted like they'd been made that morning. I ate mechanically, staring out at the grounds below where men still patrolled in the morning light. I couldn't hide in this room forever. Whatever Gabriel's world was, I needed to understand it if I was going to survive here. The hallways were quiet when I ventured out. My footsteps muffled by expensive carpet. I passed closed doors, artwork that probably cost more than my education debt, before finding stairs that led down to the main floor. Voices drifted from somewhere deeper in the house. Gabriel's among them. But I turned the opposite direction. The library hit me like a physical force. Floor-to-ceiling shelves covered 3 walls, packed with books that looked actually read rather than decoratively arranged. I ran my fingers along leather spines, reading titles in English, Italian, Latin. Augustine's Confessions sat next to Dante's Inferno. Thomas Aquinas's Summa Theologica shared space with modern philosophy. This wasn't the collection of someone trying to look educated. This was someone who genuinely wrestled with ideas. I didn't take you for a reader. I spun around. Gabriel stood in the doorway, dressed more casually than I'd seen him. Dark jeans and a charcoal Henley that somehow made him look more dangerous, not less. Without the armor of the suit, I could see the lean muscle of his frame, the way he moved with controlled precision. I had to drop out of college, not high school, I said. I can read just fine. Something like amusement flickered across his face. I meant I didn't expect you to seek out the library first. Most people go for the kitchen or the pool. You have a pool? Indoor. Heated. Feel free to use it. He stepped fully into the room, and I became acutely aware of how alone we were. Did you sleep? Eventually. I pulled a book at random from the shelf, needing something to do with my hands. Aquinas. Of course. Is this really yours, or just for show? Really mine. My mother insisted I receive proper education, even if it was in subjects that had nothing to do with the family business. He moved closer, taking the book gently from my hands and replacing it on the shelf. She believed that understanding philosophy and theology would make me a better man, regardless of what profession I chose. Did it work? His smile was sad. I'm not sure she'd recognize what I became. We stood there in the morning light filtering through tall windows, and I saw something in his expression that made my chest ache. Regret. Bone deep and permanent. The blood on those shirts. I said quietly. Whose was it? Men who were trying to kill me. Who succeeded in killing 2 of mine. His voice was flat, matter of fact. That's the world I live in, Hannah. Violence isn't occasional. It's constant. Then why stay in it? Because leaving would cause more violence. Because 60 families depend on the Moretti organization for income, protection, stability. Because the alternative to me controlling this territory is the Versiani organization, who traffic in things I won't touch. Children. Forced prostitution. Fentanyl. He leaned against the bookshelf, and for the first time since meeting him, he looked tired. I'm not a good man, but I try to be less bad than the alternatives. I wanted to argue with the logic, to find the holes in his justification. But standing there, seeing the weight he carried, I couldn't quite manage it. My eyes caught on something through the open door of an adjacent room. Gabriel followed my gaze and tensed slightly. Your office? I asked. Yes. I walked toward it before he could stop me, drawn by what I'd glimpsed. The office was masculine and spare, all dark wood and leather. But in the corner sat something that didn't fit the aesthetic at all. A small altar. Not decorative, not dusty with disuse. Fresh candles burned before a wooden crucifix that looked centuries old. Images of saints flanked it. Saint Michael with his sword, Our Lady holding out her hands in blessing. A rosary lay coiled beside the candles, the beads worn smooth with handling. "You're Catholic." It wasn't a question. Gabriel's jaw tightened. "I was raised Catholic. But you still are. You keep this. You use it." I turned to face him. "How does that work? How do you reconcile what you believe with what you do?" "I don't." The words came out harsh. "That's the point, Hannah. I can't reconcile it. I go to confession in churches where no one knows my face. The priests refuse absolution because I won't promise to stop, to abandon everything. And they're right to refuse. I'm damned. I know it. I accept it. But I still pray because I don't know what else to do." The raw honesty in his voice stole my breath. This wasn't a man making excuses or hiding behind justifications. This was someone genuinely trapped, genuinely suffering. "Your mother," I said softly. "She raised you with this faith? She immigrated from Naples when she was 20. Met my father, thought he was just a successful businessman." Gabriel's hands clenched at his sides. "By the time she understood what he really was, I was already born. She tried to balance it, to give me something good to hold on to. She died when I was 20. Cancer. And 2 years later, my father was murdered by the families who are now trying to ally with Verziani. So you took over at 22. I didn't have a choice. The alternative was letting everything collapse into war. Letting the men who'd served my father and grandfather starve or die. Taking on the family meant inheriting all its sins, but it also meant protecting people who'd done nothing wrong except be born into this world. We were standing close now. Close enough that I could see the faint scar on his neck. The one I'd noticed that first night. My hand moved before I could stop it. Fingers hovering near the mark. "Someone tried to kill you. When I was 25. They almost succeeded." He didn't pull away from my almost touch. That's when I understood that this life doesn't end until death ends it. There's no retirement, no walking away, only the grave. That's horrible. That's reality. The days that followed fell into an unexpected rhythm. Gabriel worked from the house, coordinating operations I tried not to think too hard about. I explored, read, tried to pretend this was some strange vacation rather than protective custody. But every evening, we'd find each other in the library or over dinner, and our conversations grew longer, deeper, more dangerous. He challenged me on moral philosophy. I challenged him on consequentialist ethics. We debated free will and determinism, redemption and damnation. Whether choices made under duress could truly be called choices at all. "You don't judge me," he said one evening, passing me the salt across the dinner table. Our fingers brushed, sending electricity up my arm. "Why? I'm judging you plenty," I said. "I just don't think you're simple enough for simple judgments. Most people do. Most people are lazy thinkers." That almost smile appeared, the one that transformed his severe face into something warmer. "Is that your professional opinion? College dropout?" "Debt-ridden college dropout," I corrected. "Get it right." The laughter that escaped him was genuine, unguarded. In that moment, he looked years younger, almost happy. It did something to my chest. Something I absolutely couldn't afford to feel. A week into my stay, I was reading in the library when I heard a sharp curse from the kitchen. I found Gabriel standing at the sink, blood running from his hand where he'd apparently broken a glass. "Let me see." I was moving before thinking, taking his hand in mine, examining the cut. Deep but clean. No glass visible. "Hold still." I cleaned the wound with the efficiency of someone who'd spent 2 years in pre-med before switching to chemistry. His hand was large in mine, calloused, warm despite the blood loss. As I worked, I became aware of how close we were standing, how his breath caught slightly when I pressed gauze against the cut. "You're good at this," he said quietly. "I wanted to be a doctor once, before the debt made it impossible. I wrapped the gauze, securing it carefully, before I had to choose between dreams and survival. If you could go back, finish your degree, would you?" "In a heartbeat. But that's not reality. Reality is laundromat shifts and hoping I can make rent." His free hand came up, tilting my chin so I had to meet his eyes. What if reality could change? Before I could answer, before I could process the heat in his gaze, or the way my pulse was racing, an alarm blared through the house. Gabriel moved instantly, pulling me toward a door I hadn't noticed before. Safe room, now. What's happening? They found us. He opened the door, revealing a reinforced room lined with screens. Get inside. Lock it behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me or Thomas. Gabriel, do it, Hannah, please. The please broke through my resistance. I stepped inside, and he sealed the door, the locks engaging with mechanical precision. Through the screens, I could see multiple camera angles of the property. Men approaching the perimeter. Gunfire erupting in short, controlled bursts. I watched Gabriel coordinate the defense through a window, his movements efficient and deadly. Watched him take down an attacker with brutal precision. Watched the violence I'd been trying not to think about become horrifyingly real. It lasted 20 minutes. 20 minutes that felt like hours. When the door finally opened, Gabriel stood there covered in blood, breathing hard, but uninjured. It's over. They're gone. I didn't think. Just ran to him. Threw my arms around him despite the blood, despite everything. He caught me, held me tight, his face buried in my hair. I thought I couldn't finish the sentence. I'm fine. You're fine. That's what matters. His hand came up to cup the back of my head, and when I tilted my face up, his eyes were burning with something that had nothing to do with the fight. We were a breath apart, a heartbeat. His thumb traced my jawline, and I knew if either of us moved, we'd cross a line we couldn't uncross. Thomas burst in before we could. Boss, we have a problem. Gabriel released me slowly, reluctantly. What? They hit the laundromat again. Took one of the workers. Thomas's expression was grim. The girl who was on shift. Rachel Cooper. They're using her to send a message. The blood drained from my face. Rachel. 19-year-old Rachel who worked nights to pay for community college. Who'd covered my shifts when I was sick. Who was now in the hands of people who'd just tried to kill us. No, I whispered. No, this is my fault. They took her because of me. Gabriel's hand found mine, gripped tight. We'll get her back. I promise you, Hannah. We'll bring her home. But as I stared at Thomas's grim expression and felt Gabriel's blood seeping through my borrowed clothes, I understood something I'd been trying to avoid. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't protection until things blew over. This was my life now. Violent and impossible. Beautiful and terrible. And the man whose hand I was holding, the man I was starting to care about far too much, lived in a world where innocent people paid the price for his war. The question was whether I could live in that world too. Rachel, 19 years old, community college student, the girl who'd covered my shifts when I had the flu last winter. Now she was a hostage because someone had seen her at the laundromat where I worked, assumed she knew something, anything about Gabriel Moretti. We're getting her back. I wasn't asking. I was telling him. Gabriel's expression was carefully neutral, the mask he wore when making tactical decisions. Hannah, you don't understand what you're asking. I understand perfectly. Rachel is in danger because of me, because I cleaned your shirts and they think she's connected to you through me. I stepped closer, forcing him to meet my eyes. You said you don't let innocence pay for your choices. Prove it. Thomas cleared his throat. Boss, the message came through one of our informants. They're holding her at a warehouse in the industrial district. They want a meeting. You for the girl. It's a trap, Gabriel said flatly. Obviously, I shot back. But you can't just leave her there. I can send a team, negotiate through intermediaries. There are protocols for situations like this. Protocols that get hostages killed when organizations like Versiani decide they're more useful as examples. I crossed my arms. I know Rachel. I can help. Let me be part of the negotiation. Gabriel's head snapped toward me. Absolutely not. You're not trained for this. You'd be walking into a combat situation with no protection, no experience. I'll have you. The words came out quieter than intended. You'll be there. Your team will be there. And Rachel knows my voice. Trusts me. If she sees me, she'll stay calm. That has to count for something. He studied me for a long moment, and I could see the war happening behind those dark eyes. The part that wanted to protect me at all costs, battling with the part that understood I was right. If I agree to this, you follow my orders exactly. No improvisation, no heroics. You do exactly what I tell you, when I tell you. His voice was steel. "And you wear protection. Full tactical vest. Everything." "Done." Thomas made a sound that might have been approval or concern. "I'll coordinate with the team. We can have eyes on the location within the hour." The next 2 hours were a blur of preparation. Gabriel's people moved with military precision, mapping the warehouse, identifying entry points, planning contingencies. I was fitted with a bulletproof vest that felt heavier than it looked, given an earpiece so I could hear Gabriel's instructions. He checked every strap personally, his hands gentle despite the urgency. "This protects your torso. Not your head, not your limbs. You stay behind cover. You don't expose yourself to get a better view or to help. Understood?" "Yes." His jaw tightened. "I need you to promise me, Hannah. Promise you won't do anything reckless." "I promise." I caught his hand before he could pull away. "Gabriel, you're coming back from this too, right?" Something vulnerable flashed across his face. He pulled me into a small room off the main hall, away from the organized chaos of his team preparing. Inside was what I'd glimpsed before, the private chapel his mother had maintained. Candles flickered before the crucifix, casting shadows across his features. He knelt without speaking, and I watched as he bent his head, rosary beads sliding through his fingers. His lips moved in silent prayer, and I understood what I was witnessing. A man asking for protection he wasn't sure he deserved. A man carrying the weight of faith and sin in equal measure. I knelt beside him, not to pray. I'd left religion behind years ago, but to be present. To share this moment of vulnerability he was offering me. When he finally looked up, his eyes were burning. "Something changed when you walked into my life. I don't know what it is, or how to explain it. But the thought of you getting hurt tonight," he couldn't finish. "Then make sure I don't." I reached up, touched his face, feeling the rough stubble against my palm. "Come back to me. Both of us come back. Hannah." My name was almost a prayer on his lips. Then we were kissing, desperate and urgent, his hands cupping my face like I was something precious he was terrified to break. I tasted fear and need, and something deeper, something that had been building between us since that first night in the laundromat. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, the tactical vest between us suddenly felt like a wall. "After," he whispered. "After this is done, we talk about what this is." "After," I agreed. The warehouse district was exactly as ugly as expected. Abandoned buildings, broken windows, the smell of rust and decay. Our convoy stopped 3 blocks away, and Gabriel's team spread out with practiced efficiency, taking positions around the perimeter. Thomas stayed with me as Gabriel coordinated through his earpiece. "You ready for this?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." "That's how you know you're brave." "Doing it scared," Gabriel returned, his face hard. "They're expecting me in 10 minutes. I'll approach from the south entrance. Hannah, you'll be 30 feet behind me, visible but not close enough to be grabbed immediately. When I give the signal, you call out to Rachel. Make her look at you, not at them. Understand?" "I understand." "Thomas, you're with me. The rest of the team has their positions." We moved through the darkness, every sense heightened. I could hear my own heartbeat, feel the weight of the vest, taste copper fear on my tongue. Gabriel moved like a predator, controlled and lethal, and I followed in his wake. The warehouse entrance gaped like a mouth. Light spilled from inside, harsh and industrial. Gabriel held up a hand, and I stopped where he indicated, pressing against a concrete pillar. He walked forward alone. I couldn't see inside from my position, could only hear through the earpiece. "Moretti, you came." A voice, heavily accented. "Russian. You have something of mine. I want her back." "You mean something of hers?" A pause. "Where is the girl? The laundry worker?" "We know she's here." My blood ran cold. They wanted me specifically. "Change of plans," Gabriel said calmly. "You get neither of us. You get to walk away alive. That's the deal." Laughter. Then gunfire. Everything happened at once. Gabriel's voice in my ear, sharp and commanding. "Now, Hannah." I stepped into the entrance, saw Rachel zip-tied to a chair, terrified, but alive. "Rachel, look at me." It's Hannah! Look at me! Her head snapped toward my voice, and in that second of distraction, Gabriel's team moved. They came from every direction, a coordinated assault that turned the warehouse into chaos. I saw Gabriel take down 2 men with brutal efficiency, saw Thomas fire with surgical precision, saw Rachel's captor reaching for her, and without thinking, I grabbed a pipe from the ground and threw it with all my strength. It hit his shoulder, not enough to stop him, but enough to make him turn. Enough for one of Gabriel's men to get a clear shot. Then someone was cutting Rachel free, pulling her toward the exit, toward safety. Gabriel was suddenly at my side, blood on his shirt but moving, alive. Go, now! He pushed me toward the exit as more shots echoed behind us. We made it to the vehicles. Rachel was shaking, sobbing, but unhurt physically. Gabriel's team secured the perimeter as we pulled away, and only then did I see the blood spreading across Gabriel's left arm. You're hit. Grazed. I've had worse. But his face was pale. Back at the mansion, a doctor I hadn't met treated Gabriel's wound while I sat with Rachel, holding her hand as she cried. She didn't ask many questions. Maybe she was too traumatized. Or maybe she understood that knowing less was safer. Gabriel arranged everything. A car to take her to family in Seattle, her aunt who'd agreed to let her stay until things settled. Therapy sessions paid for anonymously. A new phone with a number only I had. Thank you, she whispered to me before leaving the next morning. You didn't have to come for me. Yes, I did. I hugged her tight. Take care of yourself, Rachel. When the car disappeared down the drive, I felt something break inside me. The weight of what had happened, what could have happened, hit all at once. My hand started shaking. Gabriel was there immediately, his good arm coming around me. Come on, let's get you inside. But once we were inside, once the door closed and we were alone in the hallway, everything that had been building between us ignited. He backed me against the wall, his mouth finding mine with an urgency that stole my breath. I gasped against his lips, and he swallowed the sound, his hands sliding into my hair. I watched them almost take you, he breathed against my neck. Watched you throw that pipe and thought my heart would stop. You got shot protecting me. I'd do it again. I'd do it 1,000 times. He pulled back enough to meet my eyes. Hannah, this isn't smart. Nothing about this is smart. I know. I'm dangerous for you. This life is dangerous for you. I know that too. Then why? I kissed him quiet, pouring everything I couldn't say into it. All the fear and relief and this impossible thing growing between us that felt too big to name. He lifted me easily, his injured arm apparently not bothering him enough to stop, and carried me upstairs to his room. Not the guest suite. His room, with its massive bed and windows overlooking the city lights. What happened next was intense, emotional, charged with everything we'd been holding back. His hands learned the geography of my body with reverence and hunger in equal measure. Every touch said things we weren't ready to speak aloud. Afterward, we lay tangled together in his sheets, my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat slow. What are we doing? I whispered. His fingers traced patterns on my bare shoulder. I don't know, but I don't want to stop. Even though it's complicated? Especially because it's complicated. Nothing worth having is simple, Hannah. I tilted my head up to look at him. In the dim light, he looked younger, less burdened, almost at peace. I'm falling for you, I admitted. And it terrifies me. Good, he kissed my forehead, because I fell for you the moment you looked at those blood-stained shirts and chose to clean them anyway. You've been ruining me ever since. Ruining you? Making me want things I thought I'd given up on. Making me hope. His voice roughened. Making me think that maybe redemption isn't completely impossible. I didn't have words for that. So I kissed him instead, slow and deep, and let my body say what my voice couldn't. Tomorrow would bring new complications. Tomorrow we'd have to face what this meant, where it could possibly go. But tonight, we had this, each other. And for now, that was enough. The morning after Rachel left for Seattle, I woke tangled in Gabriel's sheets with sunlight streaming across his bare shoulders. He was already awake, propped on one elbow, watching me with an intensity that should have been unnerving, but somehow wasn't. "How long have you been staring?" I asked, my voice still rough with sleep. "Long enough to memorize the way you look when you're not guarding yourself." His fingers traced the curve of my jaw. "You frown slightly. Even in sleep. I have a lot to frown about. Student debt, unstable employment, being hunted by Russian mobsters." I caught his hand, pressing a kiss to his palm, falling for a man who lives in a world I don't understand. "You understand more than you think." He pulled me closer, and I went willingly, fitting against him like we'd been doing this for years instead of days. "You see the complexity. Most people only see the surface, make their judgments, and move on. You dig deeper. Is that a compliment or a warning?" "Both." We stayed like that, wrapped in each other in the quiet morning, until Thomas knocked to say breakfast was ready. The domesticity of it all felt surreal. Eating eggs and coffee with Gabriel and his second-in-command, discussing plans for the day like we were a normal household instead of a crime organization. Over the next few days, I learned the rhythms of Gabriel's world. Morning strategy meetings I wasn't invited to. Afternoons where he worked from his office while I explored the grounds or read in the library. Evenings that belonged to us. Stolen hours where we could pretend the violence outside these walls didn't exist. But I was getting restless. Being protected also meant being kept in the dark. And I'd never been good at ignorance. "I want to know what's happening," I said one afternoon, finding Gabriel in his office reviewing what looked like shipping manifests. With Versiani, with the war, with everything. He looked up from the papers, expression carefully neutral. "Hannah, don't." I crossed my arms. "Don't tell me it's for my protection or my safety. I'm already in this. Rachel got taken because of me. I participated in a rescue operation. I'm sleeping in your bed. You don't get to shield me from information now." Something like respect flickered in his eyes. "You're right. What do you want to know?" "Everything. Start with why Versiani wants Portland so badly." He leaned back in his chair, gesturing for me to sit. "Portland is what we call a clean port. Low corruption in law enforcement compared to cities like New York or Los Angeles. That makes it valuable for moving product, both legal and illegal. The Moretti family has controlled the docks and distribution networks for 60 years. We keep heavy drugs out. We don't traffic people. We maintain order. And Versiani allied with the Solntsevskaya Bratva, one of the largest Russian organizations. They want to bring in fentanyl, expand the prostitution trade, use Portland as a hub for weapons trafficking. Things my family has spent decades keeping out of this city." His jaw tightened. "I'm not claiming moral high ground, Hannah. I'm a criminal. But I have lines I won't cross. They don't. I absorbed this, trying to reconcile the man I was falling for with the reality of what he represented. So this war continues until what? One of you is dead? Until one of us backs down or is eliminated, yes. That's a hell of a future to offer someone." "I know." He stood, coming around the desk to where I sat. "That's why I keep trying to give you outs. To let you walk away before you're in too deep. I'm already in too deep." I looked up at him. This dangerous man with his conflicted faith and impossible choices. "The question is whether we figure out how to navigate this together. Or whether you keep trying to protect me by pushing me away." His hand cupped my face, thumb brushing my cheekbone. "I don't want to push you away. I want to keep you. But I'm terrified of what that means. Then let me decide what I can handle. Trust me to know my own limits." We stood there, the weight of impossible decisions hanging between us, until his phone rang. He answered with visible reluctance, listened, then his expression darkened. "Understood. I'll be there in 10. He ended the call and met my eyes. "I need to go into the city. There's a situation that requires my presence." "What kind of situation?" "The kind I can't talk about yet." He saw my expression and sighed. "Hannah, some things genuinely are dangerous for you to know. Not because I don't trust you, but because in this world, knowledge can get you killed." Before I could argue, Thomas appeared in the doorway. "Boss, we need to move." Gabriel kissed me quickly, fiercely. "Stay here. Don't leave the grounds. I'll be back before dinner." Then he was gone, leaving me alone with my frustration and fear. The hours crawled past. I tried reading, couldn't focus. tried watching television, found nothing that could distract me from wondering where Gabriel was, what he was doing, whether he was safe. By the time he returned at 6, I'd worked myself into a state of barely controlled anxiety. He found me pacing the library, and one look at his face told me something significant had happened. "What?" I demanded. "Later. First, we need to talk about something else." He pulled an envelope from his jacket and handed it to me. "This came through today." I opened it, scanned the contents, and felt my blood run cold. It was a statement from my student loan servicer. Balance, 0. Paid in full as of this morning. "What did you do?" "I paid your debt." His voice was careful, controlled. All of it. Fury ignited in my chest. "You had no right. That was my debt, my responsibility. You were drowning under it, working 60-hour weeks just to make minimum payments. It was going to take you 15 years to clear it. That doesn't give you the right to just erase it without asking me." I threw the envelope at him. "Do you have any idea how that makes me feel? Like I'm some charity case you're taking care of? Like you bought me?" Pain flashed across his face. "That's not why I did it." "Then why? Why go behind my back and make this decision for me?" "Because I wanted to free you." He stepped closer, and I saw the raw emotion in his eyes. "Every conversation we have about the future, you talk about debt like it's a chain around your neck. I wanted to cut that chain. Not to control you, Hannah. To give you actual choices instead of forcing you to stay because you have nowhere else to go." The anger drained out of me, replaced by something more complicated. "You should have asked. You would have said no." "Exactly. Because it's my life. My decision." I pressed my hands against my face, trying to process. "Gabriel, I need my autonomy. I need to feel like I'm choosing this, choosing you, not because I'm financially dependent or trapped." "I understand." He reached out, then stopped, uncertain. "What if we call it a loan? No interest. Pay me back whenever you can. Would that make it better?" I looked at him. This powerful man who commanded an empire but was standing here vulnerable, trying to fix what he'd broken. It would help. "But you can't do things like this without talking to me first. We're supposed to be partners, right?" "Right. I'm sorry. I'm not used to considering someone else's perspective on decisions like this." "Well, get used to it, because I'm not going anywhere." He pulled me into his arms, and I let him, breathing in his scent and feeling the solid warmth of him. "I love you," he whispered against my hair. "I know it's too soon and too complicated, but I need you to know." My heart stopped. Started again. Faster. "Say that again." "I love you, Hannah Wells." Completely. Impossibly. Against all logic and reason. I pulled back to look at his face, saw the truth blazing in those dark eyes. "This is insane. We've known each other less than 2 weeks. I know. You're a criminal. I'm trying to be a normal person. I know that too. And I love you back, which makes me just as crazy as you are." The smile that broke across his face was transformative, turning him from dangerous to beautiful in the space of a heartbeat. He kissed me until we were both breathless, until the world narrowed to just this, just us. That evening, Gabriel did something unexpected. He invited Thomas and 3 other men to dinner, formally introducing me as someone important to him. Not as a guest, not as someone under protection, but as his partner. Thomas lifted his glass. To Hannah, who's apparently the only person who can make the boss smile genuinely. The others laughed, echoing the toast, and I felt the weight of acceptance. These men who'd served Gabriel for years were welcoming me into their circle. After they left, Gabriel and I attempted to cook dinner together. It went poorly. We burned the pasta, oversalted the sauce, and ended up ordering pizza while laughing at our complete domestic failure. "My mother would be horrified," Gabriel said, stealing a slice from the box. "She spent years trying to teach me proper Italian cooking. Tell me about her." I curled up next to him on the couch, our usual positions reversed, him relaxed for once. "She was fierce. Immigrated from Naples when she was barely 20, spoke broken English her entire life, but ran our household like a general." His expression softened with memory. "She tried so hard to keep me separate from my father's world. Made me go to church every Sunday, study philosophy and literature. Learn about something beyond violence and power. She sounds amazing. She was. When she got sick, when we knew it was terminal, she made me promise to try to be better than what I was born into. I've failed that promise more times than I can count. I took his hand. Do you think she'd forgive you? For the choices you've made? I don't know. I'd like to think she'd understand the impossible position I was in. 22 years old, suddenly responsible for an empire and hundreds of lives. He met my eyes. But meeting you, Hannah, you make me want to try again. To actually honor that promise instead of just carrying the guilt. That's a lot of pressure to put on one person. You didn't ask for it, but you inspire it anyway. He pulled me closer. You make me think redemption might actually be possible. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked it, and his entire body went rigid. What? Thomas just confirmed intelligence from one of our people inside Verciani's organization. He stood, already moving toward his office. They're planning a coordinated strike. 3 targets simultaneously. Here, my downtown office, and the laundromat. Ice flooded my veins. When? Dawn tomorrow. They want to hit us when they think we're least prepared. He was already making calls, coordinating defenses. This is the big push, Hannah. Either we stop them now, or this war escalates beyond anything we've seen. I watched him transform from the man who'd just been laughing over burned pasta into the calculated leader who commanded an organization. Both were real. Both were him. What do you need from me? I asked. He stopped mid-dial, looked at me. I need you to stay safe. That's all. Gabriel, please, Hannah. I can't coordinate a defense if I'm worried about you being in the crossfire. Let me do this knowing you're protected. I wanted to argue, but I saw the fear underneath his command, the genuine terror of losing me. Okay, I'll stay here. Stay out of the way. But you come back to me. Whatever happens, you come back. Always. He kissed me hard, desperate. I promise. As he left to prepare for war, I stood alone in his office, staring at the crucifix on his private altar. And for the first time in years, I found myself praying, not because I believed, but because he did. And if there was any power listening, any mercy available, Gabriel Moretti deserved it more than most people would ever understand. Tomorrow would bring violence, choices that couldn't be undone. But tonight, I loved a complicated man who was trying to be better than his circumstances allowed. Gabriel divided his forces with military precision, spreading maps across the dining table as dawn approached. Thomas would defend the mansion with the bulk of the men. Another team would secure the downtown office. That left the laundromat. I'm going there, I said, before he could assign it to someone else. Every head in the room turned toward me. Gabriel's expression hardened. Absolutely not. I know that building better than anyone here. Every exit, every blind spot where the equipment is positioned. I crossed my arms. You need every advantage you can get, and I'm offering one. Hannah, don't. I moved closer, lowering my voice so only he could hear. You said we're partners. That means I get to fight too. Especially for a place that's only a target because of me. The muscle in his jaw jumped. He was furious, terrified, and I could see him calculating odds, weighing risks. Finally, he turned to one of his men. Marco, you take 5 men to the laundromat with Hannah. You follow her tactical suggestions about the layout, but you keep her behind cover at all costs. Understood? Yes, boss. Gabriel pulled me aside as the others dispersed to prepare. If anything happens to you, it won't. I caught his face between my hands. I'll be careful. I'll stay behind your men. But I can't hide here while people die protecting territory I made dangerous. He kissed me hard, desperately. Come back to me. Always. The laundromat looked haunted in the pre-dawn darkness. Its shattered windows from the first attack still boarded up. Marco and his team moved with practiced silence, taking positions I suggested, behind the industrial washers, near the supply closet, by the back exit where anyone entering wouldn't see them immediately. I crouched behind the front counter, the same place I'd stood that first night cleaning Gabriel's shirts. It felt like a lifetime ago, instead of 2 weeks. They'll come at first light, Marco whispered through the comms. 3, maybe 4 vehicles based on intel. Hannah, you stay exactly where you are unless I tell you to move. Clear? Clear. The minutes crawled past. My heart hammered so loud I was certain everyone could hear it through the earpiece. Then, as the sky began to lighten, engines growled in the distance. 3 black SUVs pulled up outside. Doors opened. Men poured out, at least a dozen, armed and moving with the confidence of people who expected no resistance. They were wrong. The first one through the door died before he registered what was happening. Marco's shot precise and fatal. Then chaos erupted. Gunfire exploded from both sides. I pressed myself flat against the floor, hands over my ears, as bullets punched through walls and equipment. The smell of cordite and fear filled the air. Hannah! Marco's voice in my ear. The industrial washers, there's a control panel. Can you activate the steam vents? I knew exactly what he meant. The old machines had manual release valves that could fill the room with scalding steam, creating instant cover. I can reach it. Do it. On my count. 3, 2, 1, go. I scrambled across the floor, staying low, and yanked the emergency release. Steam erupted from 4 massive machines simultaneously, turning the laundromat into a sauna from hell. Visibility dropped to nothing. Through the white fog, I heard more shots, screams, bodies hitting the ground. Then someone grabbed my arm. I reacted on instinct, driving my elbow back into soft tissue. The man grunted, released me, and I saw the gun in his hand rising toward Marco, who was focused on a target to his left. A metal pipe, one I'd used 1,000 times to unjam the dryers, lay within reach. I grabbed it and swung with every ounce of strength I had. It connected with his temple with a sound I'd never forget. He dropped like a puppet with cut strings, the gun clattering from his hand. For a second, I thought he was just unconscious. Then I saw his eyes, open and empty, blood pooling beneath his head. I'd killed him. The pipe fell from my numb fingers. I stared at my hands, at the man I'd just ended, and felt something inside me crack. Hannah, down! Marco tackled me as more shots tore through the space where I'd been standing. The steam was clearing. Bodies littered the floor, most in Verciani colors, but 2 in the dark suits Gabriel's men wore. The attack lasted maybe 15 minutes total. Felt like hours. When silence finally fell, Marco checked the perimeter while I sat against the wall, unable to stop shaking. The dead man was 3 feet away, his blood mixing with water from burst pipes. We need to move, Marco said gently. Boss is already asking for status. Are you hurt? No. My voice sounded distant, disconnected. I killed someone. You saved my life. That man would have shot me in the back. He crouched beside me. I know it doesn't help right now, but you did what you had to do. Through my earpiece, I heard fragments of other battles. Gabriel at the downtown office, his voice tense but controlled. Thomas at the mansion, reporting casualties. 2 of Gabriel's men dead at our location. 3 more wounded across all sites. But they'd repelled the attacks. They'd won. The victory felt hollow as Marco helped me to my feet and guided me over bodies toward the exit. Back at the mansion, organized chaos reigned. The injured were being treated. The dead counted. Damage assessed. I stumbled out of the SUV covered in blood that wasn't mine and found Gabriel emerging from another vehicle, his left arm hanging useless, crimson spreading across his white shirt. You're hit. I was running before I finished processing, reaching him as he swayed slightly. It's nothing. Through and through, missed the bone. But his face was gray, his breathing shallow. You're okay. Tell me you're okay. I killed someone. The words tumbled out. He was going to shoot Marco, and I hit him with a pipe, and now he's dead and I can't stop seeing his eyes. Gabriel pulled me against him with his good arm, and I felt him trembling too. Or maybe that was me. Maybe it was both of us. I'm sorry. God, Hannah, I'm so sorry you had to do that. Thomas appeared with the doctor, a man who looked exhausted and efficient in equal measure. Boss, you need treatment now. Take care of everyone else first. Gabriel? I said firmly, finding some core of steel beneath the shock. Sit down. Let him treat you. That's an order. Something like pride flickered in his eyes despite the pain. Yes, ma'am. I held his good hand while the doctor worked, removing the bullet, cleaning the wound, stitching it closed. Gabriel didn't make a sound, but his grip on my hand tightened until I thought bones might break. "You'll live," the doctor pronounced finally. "But no heavy lifting for at least 2 weeks. The shoulder needs time to heal properly. After everyone else was treated, after the bodies were removed and the wounded settled, after the sun had fully risen on a day we'd both survived, Gabriel and I found ourselves alone in his bedroom. We were covered in blood and dirt and trauma. Too exhausted to sleep, too wired to rest. "I've never taken a life before," I whispered, staring at my hands. "I've spent years trying to save things, heal things, and in 10 seconds I just ended someone." Gabriel sat beside me on the edge of the bed, his injured arm in a sling. "I know this doesn't help, but it gets easier. The guilt becomes something you carry instead of something that paralyzes you. I don't want it to get easier." I looked at him. "I don't want to become numb to this." "Then don't. Hold on to that horror. It means you're still human." He touched my face with his good hand. "But Hannah, you survived. We both did. And 2 of my men didn't. That's the cost of this world." The weight of it crashed over me then. Everything I'd been holding back. The terror, the violence, the impossible choices. I broke, finally, sobbing against his chest, while he held me as tightly as his injuries allowed. "This can't continue," I said when I could speak again. "This constant war, the attacks, the bodies, it has to end." "I know." His voice was grim. "Versiani crossed a line today. He coordinated simultaneous attacks on 3 locations. That's a declaration of total war. There's only one way this ends now. What do you need?" He pulled back to look at me. "I need you to understand that what comes next is going to be brutal. Final. I'm going to eliminate Versiani and dismantle his organization completely. That means people are going to die. Probably a lot of people. Can you do it? Actually finish this? With Thomas, with our alliances, yes. But it'll take planning. Resources. Time we'll use to recover and prepare." His eyes searched mine. "The question is whether you can live with me after I do it." I thought about the man I'd killed today. The weight of that single death. Gabriel carried dozens, maybe hundreds, and he was asking if I could love him despite that burden. Or maybe because he carried it so I wouldn't have to. "Yes," I said quietly, "because the alternative is more nights like this one. More innocent people caught in crossfire. More people like Rachel taken as pawns." I caught his face between my hands. "End it, Gabriel. Whatever it takes. Just end it so we can actually have a future instead of surviving until the next attack." Something raw and vulnerable crossed his expression. "I love you. Even covered in blood. Even traumatized. Even after killing someone to protect my men. Maybe especially then. I love you too. All of you. Even the parts that scare me." I kissed him softly. "Now let's sleep. We both need it." We cleaned up minimally, too exhausted for anything thorough, and collapsed into bed together. Gabriel held me carefully, mindful of his injury, and I pressed against his warmth, grateful beyond words that we'd both survived. But as I drifted toward sleep, I couldn't stop seeing those empty eyes, couldn't stop feeling the pipe connecting with bone, couldn't stop knowing that I'd crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Tomorrow we'd plan. We'd coordinate. We'd prepare for the final confrontation with Versiani. Tonight we mourned. For the men who died protecting us, for the innocence I'd lost, for the future we were trying to build from blood and impossible choices. And in the darkness, listening to Gabriel's breathing slow into sleep, I made my own decision. If he was going to end this war, I'd stand beside him, not behind him, not protected and sheltered, but beside him, as an equal partner. Whatever came next, we'd face it together, even if it damned us both. The week after the coordinated attacks felt like living in suspended animation. Gabriel's shoulder healed slowly, the wound angry and requiring daily attention from the doctor. I changed his dressings each morning, my hands steady even though my mind wasn't. The nightmares came every night. The man I'd killed, his eyes empty and accusing. The pipe connecting with bone. The weight of ending a life, no matter how justified. Sitting on my chest until I couldn't breathe. "You need to talk to someone," Gabriel said on the 3rd day, watching me jolt awake for the 2nd time that night. Someone trained to help with this. I'm fine. You're not. And that's okay. But you don't have to carry this alone. He reached for his phone with his good hand. I know someone. Discreet, experienced with trauma. Will you at least meet with her? I wanted to refuse on principle, but the exhaustion won out. Okay. Dr. Sarah Chen arrived the next day, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. We talked in the library, Gabriel having made himself scarce, and for the first time since the laundromat, I spoke the truth aloud. I took a life, and I'd do it again to save Marco. But that doesn't make it easier to live with. No, she agreed. It doesn't. And anyone who says differently is lying or broken. You're supposed to feel this weight. It means you're still human. Over the following days, we talked through the trauma, developed coping strategies, acknowledged the impossible position I'd been in. It didn't erase what I'd done, but it helped me contextualize it, carry it without being crushed. Gabriel spent his recovery coordinating with Thomas and captains from allied families. Maps covered his office walls, marked with locations and routes. Intelligence reports stacked on every surface. They were planning something massive. Let me help, I said, finding him hunched over satellite images despite the doctor's orders to rest. Hannah, I'm not asking to fight, but I can coordinate logistics, organize intelligence, do the planning work that doesn't require you straining your shoulder. I crossed my arms. You said we're partners. Let me actually be one. He studied me for a long moment, then gestured to the chair beside him. Here. These are Verciani's known properties. We've narrowed his location to 3 possibilities. I need someone to cross-reference the supply chain data with movement patterns. I sat, rolled up my sleeves, and got to work. The days blurred together. Planning, coordinating, preparing for what Gabriel called the end game. I learned more about his organization than I'd ever wanted to know. Saw the complicated web of legitimate businesses funding illegal operations. The families depending on Moretti money for survival. It wasn't simple. Nothing about this was simple. My phone rang on the 6th day, a number I'd memorized. Rachel. Hey, I answered, stepping onto the terrace for privacy. Hannah. Her voice was steadier than the last time we'd spoken. I wanted to check in. See how you're doing. I'm okay. How about you? How's therapy going? It's helping. My aunt's been amazing, and the therapist Dr. Moretti arranged is really good. A pause. I know what you did. Coming for me. Risking yourself. Thank you doesn't cover it. You'd have done the same. Maybe. But I'm still grateful. She took a breath. I'm not coming back to Portland. Not for a long time, maybe not ever. Too many memories, you know. I understand. You're safe. That's what matters. Are you safe? With him? I looked through the window at Gabriel, arm in a sling, arguing with Thomas about tactical approaches, and felt something warm settle in my chest. Yeah, I am. After we said goodbye, I found Gabriel in his private chapel. He knelt before the crucifix, rosary beads moving through his fingers, lips forming silent prayers. I'd seen him here before, but this felt different, more desperate. I knelt beside him without speaking. He didn't acknowledge me at first, lost in whatever conversation he was having with God. Finally, he finished, crossing himself with practiced precision. Tomorrow, he said quietly. We move tomorrow night. Tell me the plan. We've located Verciani's compound. It's fortified, but we have allies willing to help. The Romano family from Sacramento, they've been hit by Verciani's expansion too. Together, we have the numbers. He turned to face me. It's going to be brutal, Hannah. People will die. Probably some of mine. Definitely most of his. And you? I'm leading the assault. Thomas will coordinate secondary teams, but I need to be there. Need to finish this personally. Fear clawed at my throat. Your shoulder isn't fully healed. It's healed enough, and this can't wait. Every day we delay, Verciani fortifies more, brings in more men. He caught my hand, held it tight. I'm asking God to protect my people, to let us end this without losing anyone else. I don't know if he's listening, but I have to try. He's listening, I said, surprising myself. I don't know if I believe anymore, but if he exists, he hears you. What if he doesn't forgive me? What if I'm damned for everything I've done? Everything I'm about to do? I touched his face, made him look at me. Then you're damned for trying to protect people, for keeping worse things out of this city, for caring enough to ask for forgiveness even when you know you might not receive it. That has to count for something. He kissed me then, desperate and gentle, like he was trying to memorize the taste of me. If something happens tomorrow, don't. You're coming back. If something happens, he continued firmly, Thomas has instructions. You'll be taken care of. The house, the money, everything you need to finish school and build whatever life you want. Gabriel, stop. I need you to know. Need you to understand that loving you has been the best thing I've done in a very long time. You made me want to be better. That's worth everything. I couldn't respond. Couldn't speak past the emotion clogging my throat. So I just held him, there in his chapel, while he prayed, and I hoped. The next evening, I watched from the mansion as 3 convoys left, heading into the night. Gabriel in the lead vehicle, Thomas coordinating from the second, allied families in the others. 18 hours of waiting stretched ahead of me. Mrs. Rosa found me in the library around midnight, brought tea I didn't drink, and sat beside me in comfortable silence. The older woman had returned from her recovery a week ago, moving slower but determined to resume her duties. He'll come back, she said finally. Mr. Gabriel always comes back. How do you know? Because he has something to return to now. Before you, he was just surviving. Now he's living. She patted my hand. That makes all the difference. The updates came sporadically through the night. Contact made, perimeter breached, heavy resistance. Then nothing for hours that felt like centuries. Dawn was breaking when Thomas's voice finally crackled through the secured line. It's done. Verziani's dead. We're coming home. I didn't realize I was crying until Mrs. Rosa handed me tissues. They returned as the sun fully rose, vehicles battered and men exhausted. Gabriel emerged from the lead SUV covered in blood, favoring his injured shoulder, but alive. Alive and walking toward me with purpose. I met him halfway across the drive and he pulled me against him with his good arm, face buried in my hair. It's over. It's finally over. You're hurt. Reopened some stitches. Nothing serious. He pulled back to look at me. We lost 3 men. Good men. But Verziani's entire operation is dismantled. His lieutenants are scattered or dead. The Russians are pulling back to Seattle. Portland is ours again. The cost was written on his face, in the exhaustion lines and the weight in his eyes. 3 more names to add to the burden he carried. Over the next 2 days, we held funerals. Private ceremonies for the fallen, their families compensated, their sacrifices honored. Gabriel spoke at each one, his voice steady despite the grief, promising these men hadn't died for nothing. On the 3rd day, he found me in the garden, staring at roses I didn't see. We need to talk, he said. Something in his tone made my stomach clench. Okay. We walked to the terrace, sat on the low wall overlooking the grounds. He was quiet for a long moment, choosing words carefully. The war is over. Verziani is dead. His organization destroyed. You're safe now, Hannah. Actually safe, not just protected. He took my hand, which means you have a choice. You can stay here with me in this life, or you can leave, start over somewhere new. I have money set aside, enough for you to finish school, live comfortably, never worry about debt again. I stared at him. You're giving me an out. I'm giving you freedom. Real freedom, not the illusion of it. His grip tightened. I love you, more than I thought possible. But I won't trap you here with guilt or obligation or financial dependence. If you want to leave, I'll help you go. No strings, no consequences. And if I want to stay, then you stay knowing exactly what you're choosing. Knowing that I'm a criminal, that danger might always exist, that this life is complicated and morally ambiguous at best. I pulled my hand free, stood, and walked to the edge of the terrace. He was offering me everything I'd lost when those bullets shattered the laundromat windows. My freedom, my education, my future without the crushing weight of debt. All I had to do was walk away from the man I loved. I spent 2 days thinking, walking the grounds, talking to Dr. Chen, weighing options and futures and impossibilities. Gabriel gave me space, didn't pressure, just waited with patient desperation. On the morning of the 3rd day, I found him in his office. "I'm staying," I said. Relief crashed across his features. "Hannah, but on my terms." I moved closer. "I'm going back to school, finishing my chemistry degree. And I'm working in that legitimate pharmaceutical lab you own, the one developing affordable generics. Not as your kept woman, but as an employee earning my own money. Done. Anything else? I pay you back for the debt. Not all at once, but gradually. So I know I earned my freedom rather than having it given to me. If that's what you need, yes. And we're partners. Real partners. No more protecting me by hiding information or making decisions without me. We face things together or not at all." He stood, crossed to me, cupped my face in both hands. "Partners. Equal partners. I promise." "Then yes, I'm staying. I'm choosing you. This life. All of it. Complications and danger and impossible morality included." He kissed me until we were both breathless, until the decision felt sealed and permanent. "I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that choice." "You already are," I whispered. "You just don't see it yet." 6 months after the final operation against Versiani, I sat in a university lecture hall taking notes on organic chemistry like a normal 26-year-old student. Except I wasn't normal anymore. I'd killed a man, fallen in love with a criminal, chosen a life most people would never understand. But as I copied molecular structures into my notebook, surrounded by students 10 years younger who'd never held a gun or watched someone die, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Hope. The semester flew past in a blur of labs and lectures, equations and experiments. Gabriel had been true to his word, paying my tuition while I slowly transferred money back to him each month from my salary at Moretti Pharmaceuticals. The lab was legitimate, developing affordable generic medications for communities that couldn't afford brand names. My chemistry background made me useful immediately, and for the first time since dropping out, I felt like I was doing something meaningful with my education. Gabriel had changed too. The mansion felt less like a fortress now, more like an actual home. Mrs. Rosa had recovered completely, bustling around with her previous energy, occasionally shooting me approving looks when Gabriel wasn't watching. The security remained, always would, but the constant tension had eased. Portland was stable. The families had reached an understanding. Life had found a rhythm. "You're thinking too loudly again," Gabriel said one evening as we prepared dinner together. We'd gotten marginally better at cooking, though Mrs. Rosa still intervened when we attempted anything complicated. "Just processing," I said, chopping vegetables with more confidence than I'd had 6 months ago. It's strange how normal this has become. Going to class, working at the lab, coming home to you. Like we're just a regular couple. Are we not? He wrapped his arms around me from behind, chin resting on my shoulder. I go to my office, you go to yours. We have dinner, argue about what to watch on television, fall asleep together. Seems fairly normal to me. Except your office involves coordinating shipping routes for both legal and questionably legal cargo. And there are armed men patrolling our property. Minor details. I could hear the smile in his voice. The important parts are normal. That weekend, Thomas came to dinner with his girlfriend, a woman named Sarah, who taught elementary school, and had no idea about the Moretti family business beyond vague import-export descriptions. She was sweet, funny, and completely charmed by Thomas's gruff exterior hiding genuine kindness. "So, how did you two meet?" Sarah asked over pasta that Mrs. Rosa had mercifully prepared. Gabriel and I exchanged glances. "She cleaned my shirts," he said, which was technically true. I was immediately fascinated. By my laundry skills? By your competence, and your eyes, and the way you didn't back down when most people would have run. Sarah sighed happily. "That's so romantic. Thomas just arrested me for a parking violation." Thomas choked on his wine. "I gave you a warning, not an arrest." You were very intimidating about it. I had to ask you out just to prove I wasn't scared." We laughed, and for those few hours, we were just two couples sharing a meal, trading stories, enjoying each other's company. Normal. Blessedly, impossibly normal. The semester ended with final exams I actually felt prepared for. Walking out of my last test, I felt lighter than I had in years. 1 semester down, 3 to go until I had my degree. Graduation ceremony for completed coursework wasn't until spring, but when the day came, Gabriel sat in the audience wearing a suit that probably cost more than most attendees' cars, looking proud enough to burst. I spotted him immediately, Thomas beside him, both of them standing to applaud when I crossed the stage to receive my certificate of completion. Afterward, Gabriel swept me into a hug that lifted me off my feet. "I'm so proud of you. It's 1 semester. Not even a full degree yet. It's proof that you're building the future you want. That matters." He set me down, brushed hair from my face. "Dinner tonight. Just us. I have something I want to ask you." My heart skipped. "Gabriel, tonight," he repeated, kissing me softly. "Let's celebrate first." The evening was perfect. He'd arranged for us to eat on the terrace overlooking the city, Portland's lights spreading below us like fallen stars. Mrs. Rosa had outdone herself with the meal, and we ate slowly, talking about everything and nothing. When the plates were cleared, and we were alone with wine and the night air, Gabriel took my hand. "6 months ago, I offered you freedom. A way out, a fresh start, no obligations." His thumb traced circles on my palm. "You chose to stay, chose me, despite everything that choice meant. I'd choose you again," I said quietly. "Every time. I know you would. And that's why I need to ask you something." He stood, pulled me to my feet, and then did something that stopped my breath. He knelt. "Hannah Wells, you walked into my life covered in my sins, and somehow you saw past them to the man I was trying to be. You made me want redemption. Made me believe it might actually be possible." He pulled a ring from his pocket. Simple but beautiful. A single diamond that caught the light. "Will you build a different kind of empire with me? One with less blood and more purpose? Will you marry me and let me spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you?" Tears blurred my vision. "That ring better not have belonged to anyone you had killed." He laughed, the sound surprised and genuine. "It was my grandmother's, from Naples, the only family heirloom worth keeping." "Then yes. Yes, absolutely yes." He slid the ring onto my finger, stood, and kissed me until I forgot we were standing on a terrace, in view of security cameras and anyone who might be watching. Nothing mattered except this moment, this choice, this man I'd chosen, and who'd chosen me back. We married quietly 6 months later in a small chapel on the edge of Portland, the same one Gabriel's mother had attended when she first immigrated. The priest who performed the ceremony was old, had known Gabriel since childhood, and understood the complexity of blessing a union between a criminal and the woman who loved him anyway. "Do you take this man?" Father Michael asked, his voice weathered but kind. "In all his flaws and complications, to love and to cherish?" "I do," I said, meaning it completely. "And do you," he turned to Gabriel, "promise to honor this woman, to protect her not by hiding truth, but by facing it together, to build a life worthy of the love she offers?" "I do," Gabriel said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. May God have mercy on you both, and may you find the redemption you seek together." We kissed as husband and wife while Thomas applauded, and Mrs. Rosa cried happy tears, and the morning sun streamed through stained glass windows, painting everything in shades of hope. 1 year after our wedding, I stood in a community center in East Portland, 6 months pregnant and explaining water purification systems to residents who'd been drinking contaminated tap water for years. The project was ambitious. Installing filtration systems in underserved neighborhoods using Moretti money, redirected from less savory sources. Gabriel stood beside me, his hand resting protectively on my lower back, answering questions about funding and sustainability. He'd changed so much from the man I'd met in that laundromat. Still dangerous when necessary, still connected to a world I didn't fully understand, but actively working to transform his family's legacy into something better. "You're doing a good thing here," an elderly woman told us as the presentation ended. "My grandkids can finally drink water without getting sick. That matters more than you know." After the event, Gabriel and I attended a charity fundraiser where the Moretti name was becoming associated with community development rather than just whispered rumors of organized crime. It was slow, this transformation, and probably would never be complete. But it was real, intentional, worth the effort. Standing in that ballroom, my hand resting on my growing belly while Gabriel spoke with city officials about the next phase of the water project, I thought about the woman I'd been 18 months ago, drowning in debt, working 60-hour weeks, barely surviving. That woman would never have believed this future was possible. "You're thinking loudly again," Gabriel murmured, pulling me close as the orchestra played. "Just grateful," I said, "for all of it. Even the complicated parts." "Especially the complicated parts?" "Especially those." I looked up at him. This man I'd cleaned blood from, fought beside, chosen despite everything. We're building something good here. Something that matters. "We are." His hand covered mine on my stomach, feeling our daughter kick. "She's going to grow up in a better world than I did. That's the promise I'm keeping. We're keeping it together." He kissed my forehead, held me close while music played and Portland's elite mingled around us, never knowing the full truth of who Gabriel Moretti was or what we'd survived to get here. Our story wasn't a fairy tale. It was messier than that, more complicated, built from blood and impossible choices and love that probably shouldn't have worked but did anyway. The man I'd married still carried the weight of his past. I carried the weight of the life I'd taken. We both had scars that would never fully heal, but we also had each other. Had a future we were actively building rather than just surviving. Had a daughter on the way, who would inherit a legacy we were working to transform. As Gabriel led me onto the dance floor, as the city lights of Portland glowed beyond the windows, as our daughter moved beneath my hand, I understood something I'd been trying to articulate for months. Redemption wasn't about erasing the past or pretending it didn't exist. It was about acknowledging what you'd done, carrying that weight honestly, and still choosing to build something better going forward. Gabriel and I would never be innocent, but we could be intentional, could use the power and resources of the Moretti family to create the kind of change that actually mattered, could love each other through the complexity and complications and impossible morality of it all. That would have to be enough. And looking at my husband's face as we danced, feeling our daughter kick, thinking about the community center kids who could finally drink clean water, I realized something crucial. This was everything I really wanted.